The idea of working in the office all day, every day? No thanks, say workers. Now, I was hoping that the boomers would finally wake up and realize how much money they could be saving not renting those offices, not paying for all those facilities. Now, I understand there's certain people that should not be allowed to work remote. And I'm not talking about people where like whose job makes it impossible. Like, you're paid to be physically present somewhere. Like if you're a car mechanic, you're not going to work remote. Like I'm not talking about that. What I'm worried about is these boomer managers aren't even looking at the numbers anymore. They don't care if your performance increased while you were working remote. They don't care if it stayed the same as when you were in the office. All they care about is they can't spy on you at all times to make sure you're working. Like, well, how do I make sure he's not just pretending to work if he's not in the office for me to monitor him? I think that's a flaw in their attitude right there. The only thing that needs to matter is results. If you have an employee that used to be in the office and then that employee went remote and they're actually more productive than when they were in the office, you are intentionally trying to sabotage that if you're trying to call them back into the office. It's not hard. Now, there are some people whose productivity drops when they work remote. Those people need to be forced back into the office or fired. I agree with that one. I'm not going to fault the managers if they have the numbers and yeah, this person's productivity declined by like 75%. Yeah, you need to do something about that. But when you got employees who are more productive working from home and you still demand they show up to the office, your company deserves to go bankrupt. To Jonathan Pruitt, it didn't make any sense. A geospatial analyst who updates Google Maps for a living, Pruitt has been called back to his company's offices in Bothell, Washington, 5 days a week starting June 6th. Like many on his team, he had only worked remotely, having started the job during the pandemic. He'd adapted well to it, finding efficiencies such as multitasking during virtual meetings and using the time to process data. By process data, you mean play video games, of course. And yet, now he was being told to report to the office. Anyone who failed to report within 3 days of the return date would be processed as having abandoned their job. Nothing will change other than having a couple of snacks in our office and having an in-person meeting, Pruitt said. We're kind of starting to think this job isn't worth it. Now, that's a good attitude. So this is something the free market is going to decide. We'll see who wins this one. It could still go either way. If enough employees are willing to put their money where their mouth is and refuse to go back to the office at the same time as there's enough employers that are willing to accommodate them, the holdouts are going to be forced to bend the knee. They're going to be forced to accept this or go out of business because all their employees are going to quit instead of coming back to the office and join their competitors. Alternatively, if the Brandon economy really kicks in and the job market collapses, these employees are not going to have a choice anymore. So right now the market's pretty good in a lot of tech fields. So you can be picky. If one employer requires you back in the office, you can say, well, fuck you. These other 5 don't. I'm going to work for them. But if the economy really takes a shit and you can no longer afford to lose that job, you're going to go into the office. More than 2 years into a pandemic that has no clear end, it ends when people put their foot down and say enough. Now, the debate over remote work has only intensified. Working from home isn't possible in many jobs, but for those who have the option, it's now evident that it is feasible, even beneficial. And there's no going back. Yeah, that's one of the lines for me, too. If my boss said I had to go back to the office, like that is when I quit that job. Unless he's willing to pay me for my travel time and all the other the wear and tear on my car, other wasted time and money. But how beneficial is a point of contention between workers and their bosses? Some bosses are deciding too much is lost when people aren't in the office and it's time to come back. Tesla boss Elon Musk is one of them. He recently emailed his employees with the subject line, "Remote work is no longer acceptable." He reasoned that Tesla creates and makes the most exciting, meaningful products of any company on earth. This will not happen by phoning it in. Musk told them anyone wishing to do remote work must be in the office for a minimum, and I mean minimum, of 40 hours per week. Yeah. Yeah, he doesn't sound like someone I'd want to work for, but we'll see. If like half the company quits, even he'll have to bend the knee. Apple too wanted to bring people back to the office 3 days a week, but just last month the company decided to postpone its plan after more than 1,000 current and former employees signed an open letter calling the plan inefficient, inflexible, and a waste of time. Because it is. Like, I gain like 2 hours a day working remote. That like if I had to keep going to the office, it would have been like an hour travel time. It would have been all the time spent getting ready, but like time stuck in traffic and whatnot. I'm not going to voluntarily give up those 2 hours I gained working remote. Now, again, if things get so bad I don't have a choice, that's another story. But as long as I have the option, as long as I have the choice, I will not be returning to that damn office. So stop treating us like school kids who need to be told when to be and where and what homework to do they wrote. That depends on the people. Like I'll say it again. Some people can't be trusted to work remote. Some people need to be in the office micromanaged or they will not get any work done. Those people should be recalled. But others, no, leave them the fuck alone. It was yet more evidence in the shift in the balance of power between management and rank and file as demand for workers has hit record highs the past year. Companies are finding it hard to enforce unpopular policies and mandates when they fear their workers could just walk away. Yeah, I've been loving this power shift personally. It's great. The boss can't just make unreasonable demands anymore when you have the option to walk away. Now you actually have to negotiate. You actually have to talk as equals. So the Google Maps workers who are employed by the tech company Cognizant also decided to fight back. They connected with the Alphabet Workers Union and signed a petition citing Corona-Chan fears, the cost of commuting amid $5 gas, and the increase in productivity and morale that employees have experienced while working from home. Yeah, if you can prove that your productivity increased, that should be the end of the discussion. Within just days to go before the June 6th return to office deadline, Pruitt said he wasn't sure whether he and others would show up to the office on June 6th. Members of his team started preparing for a strike vote. Hours later, Cognizant did what other companies had done in recent weeks, granted a reprieve. Our first day back to the Bothell office full-time will now be September 6th, the company said in a statement. Pruitt called it a 90-day Band-Aid and vowed to continue the fight. Yeah, it's a stalling tactic by the company. I think they're going to keep stalling until the economy completely crashes and people can't afford to quit their jobs anymore. That's what I believe. So even as some companies bring back some semblance of office life, others are asking, why? What is the office for anyway? It's so boomers can show off. Hey, look, I own a real company. Look at this building we have. At the management consulting firm Eagle Hill Consulting, no relation, in Arlington, Virginia, the offices have been open since fall of current year -1, but on most days are just a smattering of employees on site, mostly from IT and HR. Yeah, IT might have to be there if they have to do some physical work on the servers in the server room. No one has been ordered back full-time or even close to it. Desks and conference rooms named after Washington, D.C. landmarks such as the Kennedy Center and Navy Yard sit empty. It's a dramatic contrast from pre-pandemic times where every seat would be full, despite the fact that flexible work was offered then. It was offered, but I bet it was one of those things that management discouraged. If you used it too much, you're on the chopping block. Could I have worked from home 4 days a week before the pandemic? I think I could have. It was just the environment, said Jason Carrier, senior associate who used to spend 4 days a week in the office and one day on the client at a client site. Although he lives just a few minutes walk from the office, he now comes in just once a week, which is less than more than most of his coworkers. The workforce at Eagle Hill is young, mostly 20, 30 somethings before they. Oh, wow, I'm still young. Oh, that's good to know. Before the pandemic, people liked being in the office together. They liked the energy. They stayed late for office happy hours at the end of the day. The extroverts did. If you're forcing the introverts to do that, you're just torturing them. I say give people the option. If they want to come to the office and do that, they're more than welcome to. If they don't, fuck you. And now offsite happy hours are becoming a regular thing alongside virtual bingo nights. So thanks in part to Carrier, who leads the workplace fun team. So the idea of working from the office all day, every day, Probably very close to a deal breaker at this point, he says. Until the Brandon economy really kicks in, man. So Eagle Hill's chief marketing officer, Susan Nealon, says she'd like to see people in the office when it makes sense. That's fair. She recently took advantage of an in-person event, a photo shoot her team had organized to gather a few members of her team for their first face-to-face meeting in more than 2 years. I view the office changing, said Nealon. It'll be less about the individual work getting done, more about group work getting done. As long as it gets done. So managers really need to move away from the attitude of a salary employee doing their quote unquote time and be more focused about the job getting done. Like, my attitude is this: like, if I hire someone to get a job done in 2 weeks and we agree on when it's due and how much money will be paid, as long as it gets done in 2 weeks, I don't care if it took the person 2 hours or 200 hours. If I get it in those 2 weeks and it's good, it's up to the level of quality I expected, I don't fucking care how long it took them. They could have been slacking off 7 hours a day. I don't give a fuck. As long as they get the work done. If slacking off makes them behave better, I mean, fuck, maybe even do it. She believes workers may be happier and more productive doing their individual work in the quiet of their homes and only come into the office for team meetings at optimal times. Instead of fighting rush hour traffic to sit in the office from 9 to 5, it might just pop in from 11 to 1, she says. Or not at all. As long as the work gets done, it shouldn't really matter. Yeah, because that's another thing I always found funny. Like, they really spy on you and micromanage you hard when you work remote to make sure you're working. But I told that story from when I was at the defense contractor. If I wanted to work from home, I had to basically fill out a binder's worth of paperwork to make the case of, oh, this is what I plan on getting done, and here's how I plan on doing it. I got to lay out in excruciating detail everything I was going to do during the time I was working from home. And then when I came back, I had to fill out another report, justifying what I actually got done. Meanwhile, if I was in the office, I could just sit there twiddling my thumbs, surfing the internet for 8 hours, and nobody questioned anything. So I had to spend like 4 hours writing essays to be able to work from home. Whereas if I just stayed in the office during that day, I could do nothing at all and nobody would be any wiser. Such a weird double standard. It's an idea that would have been unthinkable just a couple years ago, but already it's proving to be a selling point for new hires at Eagle Hill. Now, people like me have been pushing for this for at least the past decade. The only reason it was unthinkable was because of these fucking boomer managers that refuse to adapt. Like, they don't understand technology. They don't understand remote work. They want you in the office where they can see you. Oh, it's all about looking them in the eye and the firm handshake and all that other garbage. It's hard to even fathom going into the office 100%, says Farrah John Williams, who started in HR in May. I don't think I could do it again. Yep, I'm the same way. As long as I have any other option, I'm not going to go back to the office. Like, if things got real bad and I had no choice, obviously I'm going to bite the bullet and do it. Like, if I was worrying about feeding myself the next day, I'm not going to sit there going, I'm not going to go back into no office. I'd rather starve to death. No, that's not what I'm saying. As long as there's any other option, though, I'm not going back to any fucking office. So if any companies out there want to make sure you're always going to have the best and the brightest, just advertise as remote and actually fucking put your money where your mouth is. Actually live up to it.